Every town has its legends. For the small, sleepy town of Ash Hollow, the tales revolved around the Whispering Woods, a dense forest that bordered the outskirts. Generations of children had grown up on stories about the voices said to echo through the trees at night, soft, murmuring tones that spoke in a language no one could understand. Lila wasn't one to believe in ghost stories. A practical woman in her late 20s, she had moved to Ash Hollow for a fresh start. After inheriting her grandmother's old house near the edge of the woods, she relished the peace and quiet, far away from the chaos of the city. But that peace didn't last long. The first night in the house, Lila heard faint sounds outside, like whispers carried on the wind. She dismissed it as nothing more than her imagination. The second night, however, the whispers grew louder, distinct enough that she could almost make out syllables. By the third night, they seemed to form her name. Lila. She tried telling herself it was just the wind, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. Her neighbors had warned her about the woods, though their warnings had been more superstitious than specific. "Don't wander too close," old Mrs. Garrison from down the road had said. "The woods don't like strangers." Curiosity gnawed Lila, and on the fourth night, armed with a flashlight and a firm resolve, she ventured into the Whispering Woods. The air felt heavy, and the temperature seemed to drop with every step she took. The whispers were everywhere, surrounding her. They weren't coming from a single direction, but from all around, weaving through the trees like a sinister melody. Then she saw it, a figure standing in the distance. It was barely visible, its outline blurred as though it were part of the shadows. As she approached, her flashlight flickered, the beam struggling to penetrate the darkness. The figure remained still, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Go back!" Lila froze. The voice was clear now, not a whisper but a low, guttural command. Yet something compelled her forward, her legs moving of their own accord. The figure began to take shape, a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. "Who are you?" she managed to ask, her voice trembling. The man tilted his head, his lips curling into a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You don't belong here." Before Lila could respond, the ground beneath her feet shifted. She looked down to see roots writhing like snakes, curling around her ankles. She screamed and tried to pull free, but the roots tightened, dragging her down. The whispers turned into laughter, cold, mocking laughter that echoed through her skull. When she woke, Lila was lying at the edge of the woods, the sun rising in the distance. Her clothes were torn, her hands scratched and bleeding. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding as the events of the night rushed back. She told herself she wouldn't go back into the forest, no matter what. But the whispers didn't stop. Days turned into weeks, and Lila began to change. She became withdrawn, her once vibrant personality fading. Her neighbors noticed her pale complexion, the dark circles under her eyes, and the way she would stare at the woods for hours. She started hearing the whispers during the day, even when she was far from the forest. One night, months after her first encounter, Lila vanished. Her house was found empty, the front door wide open. A search party combed through the Whispering Woods, but there was no sign of her. All they found was her flashlight, lying in the dirt near the spot where she had seen the figure. The whispers grew louder after that. People began reporting sightings of a woman wandering the woods, her movements unnatural and her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Some said she looked like Lila. Others swore it wasn't her at all. The legend of the Whispering Woods lives on in Ash Hollow. And if you ever find yourself there, remember this: the woods don't like strangers, and they never let them leave.